So, Indiana. Back home again in Indiana. It's like a really famous jazz standard. And I didn't understand that because I didn't have any reason to, but if you put a bunch of guys in a room, one of them knows, a couple of them are going to know Indiana. That's somebody you can jam with, and that's a nice little thing to know. So, Back Home Again in Indiana comes out in 1917. John F. Hanley writes it. And it's recorded in January. And they got sued, even though they asked for copyright permission from the copyright holder and everything. They still get sued because the record industry just be like that and always has been. And the same year, in April, Darktown Strutter's Ball comes out. And that's the first jazz record ever released. Maybe. Timelines are really tricky, but it seems like Darktown Strutter's Ball, which is the exact same chord progression as Indiana, was the first jazz record that really got around America. And it goes all the way back to 1897, when Paul Dresser from Terra Haute, Indiana, he releases On the Banks of the Wabash, Far Away. He publishes it, right? Because it's sheet music. The public doesn't have access to a whole bunch of recordings in 1897. But the first year it's out, 500,000 copies get sold, and that's like a big deal. It gets recorded the next year in 1898 by Annie Carter, and that year on sheet music it sells 1 million copies, and that makes it a big deal. So, On the Banks of the Wabash, Far Away might be the best-selling song of the previous century, of the 1800s, right here out of Terre Haute. And then in 1917, Indiana and Darktown Strutter's Ball come out, and that's another huge hit. And that guy, Hanley, he was from Rensselaer, Indiana. The guy who wrote the music. The words were written by some guy from Portland, Oregon.
So here is the original Wabash. OG Wabash. Right here. Annie Carter in 1898. It's really not very good. All the recorded voice back in this era sounds like a bargain basement opera singer, right? But this was the straight fire once upon a time. These were the hottest bars available. The next year, George Gaskin puts out a version of Wabash. So both of these recordings do a trash job on the piano, right? That piano low end might as well be muted.
Round my Indian homestead waves the cornfield. In the distant looms the woodlands clear and cold. Oftentimes my thoughts revert to scenes of childhood, where I first received my lessons nature school. But one thing that is missing in the picture, without her face it seems to incomplete. I long to see my mother in the doorway, as she stood there years ago, a boy to greet. Oh, the moonlight fell tonight along the Wabash. From the field there comes a breath of new moon hay. Through the sycamores the candlelights are gleaming, on the banks of the Wabash far away. Many years have passed since I...
And then here's one from 1902, maybe. Harry MacDonough. Timelines get really sketchy, but we think it's 1902. Here we have a few pieces of band even backing him up. It's a little bit easier to listen to because the horns were the first things that we could really record very well.
Round my Indian homestead wave the cornfield. In the distance loom the woodlands clear and cool. Oftentimes my thoughts revert to see.
We jump ahead to 1913. This is the year Wabash becomes the official state song of Indiana. Here's the American Quartet version. Someone did a really good job on the noise reduction on this track. Listen to that, it's clean.
Round my Indiana homestead wave the cornfield. In the distance bloom the woodlands clear and cool. Oftentimes my thoughts revert to scenes of childhood, where I first received my lesson, nature's school. But one thing there is missing in the picture, without her face it seems so incomplete. I long to see my mother in the doorway, as she stood there years ago, her boy to greet. Oh, the moonlight fell tonight along the Wabash. From the field there comes the breath of new mown hay. Through the sycamores the candlelights are gleaming, on the banks of the Wabash far away. Oh, the moonlight fell tonight along the Wabash. From the field there comes the breath of new mown
In 1917, we see the first recordings of Indiana. Before you jump into the comments section about the Sterling Trio, when you go to the documentation, that recording didn't come out until 1922. I don't understand why everybody thinks that came out in 1917. The Homestead Trio recorded Indiana on May 11th, 1917. And I believe that is the first recording. And it sounded like this. Now, the song Darktown Strutter's Ball was recorded by the original Dixieland Jazz Band on May 30th. And it carries the same chord structure. And this is maybe the first time in history that you get the first impressions of that jazz vibe, where everybody's on their own program, but they're all walking the same direction, or something like that. It gives me the impression like I need to listen to it again to hear what the other parts were doing because I missed some stuff. original Dixieland Jazz Band also recorded Indiana the next day, May 31st, 1917. And I think we can all agree that they made it way more fun. I mean, compared to that down-tempo Wabash-influenced arrangement, this arrangement slaps. From 1917 on, we see every famous jazz performer in history playing Indiana. I think because Louis Armstrong opened every public performance with it for like a decade. But we see Wabash kind of fade away. But on the banks of the Wabash far away was the starting point, out there in Terre Haute, Indiana. And a kid from Rensselaer repurposed it 20 years later. And even today, 110 years after that, jazz players will just whip out Indiana like you're supposed to know it. It still resonates after a century.